If you're watching this, you're probably really tired of trying to start a gas string trimmer. That's where I was about 3 years ago when I bought this. I'm on the Dewalt battery system, so it made sense for me to go with the Dewalt cordless model. And honestly, I have never looked back. This thing has been a fantastic investment. It definitely is not perfect, and I'm gonna go through some things I don't like about it, but overall, I am really, really happy that I've had this and I haven't had to pull a string to start a gas weed whacker in at least 3 years now. First, let's go over the positives. The number one thing I love about this is the power. It is just as powerful as any gas string trimmer that I personally have ever used. I've never used the biggest commercial model ever, but as a homeowner and property owner of a 3-acre farm, I can tell you that it really does a fantastic job compared to a gas model. It works just as good, if not better, than any gas one I've ever used. As far as power goes, I typically run a larger battery. Of course, you gotta run the 60-volt batteries. It's a 60-volt tool. This is a 12-amp-hour, but I have run it from 6 to 12. All you really change is your run time. The power is about the same. I can tell you with the 12-amp-hour battery, you're gonna be exhausted from string trimming before this battery is. I never come close to using a whole battery doing this entire property with just light string trimming. If I'm doing really heavy, like cutting down 3-4 foot high brush, it's not gonna last all day, but I can't really expect it to either for that kind of application. Operation is super simple, just a safety and a trigger to make it go. And then the only other control on it is a high-low switch. All that does is limit the motor speed. So I typically leave it on high, and the trigger is variable speed, so you can still run it at low speeds in the high setting just by not squeezing the trigger in all the way. It's well balanced, it's pretty light. I mean, it's just as light as any gas trimmer I've ever used, probably lighter if I really went and weighed them out. It does have a feature to disconnect in the middle for storage, which I frankly have never used. And then there's a hook on the back to hook it up on a wall mount, which I also have never used. I just keep it leaned up against the wall. Now let's get into some of the negatives. I've never had good luck with string trimmer heads. Unfortunately, this one's not that much different. First of all, let's talk about the guard. Really small guard. It doesn't do much in the way of keeping you free of grass, so you could expect to get completely covered in grass when you use this. It was pretty much the same for me with the gas model. I always wear long pants. Well, not today, but I usually wear long pants, and this one's really no different. Now, the head on this is hit or miss. It is a bump feed head, and it does work, but sometimes it doesn't seem to work. That may be user error as far as how I go and wind it when it's time to rewind the thing, but I find that I usually have to have it in high gear and really bump the heck out of it on the ground when I'm trying to feed more string out. There's two design flaws with this head that kind of irk me, and first is this groove right here. The groove that the bump feed has to recess into the fixed portion of the head here very easily accumulates grass, and the grass will build up in there, and then this can no longer bump in. I think that's one of the main issues with the bump feed. Sometimes they'll go to bump feed and then the spring doesn't pull back out, so the string never comes out. Then I'm stuck trying to dig all that grass debris out with a screwdriver from that crack. It's not a fun day. So I try to keep this as clean as I can to avoid that problem. The second thing, this is a very kind of weird oversight, but the string can actually get caught in these little grooves on the thumb depressions when you go to release the head. I found it only really happens in heavy brush, and the string has got to get kind of worn down on the end first, but it's the perfect size to get caught in these little grooves. And it'll get caught firmly enough that the string will not come out again. You basically are running with one string until you stop and manually pick this thing out with your finger. And that's kind of annoying. I would say it happens to me probably every other time that I'm trimming heavy brush at least once. Now let's do a quick real world test. We got to cut some clover down in the garden. Let's check it out. First order of business, I'm going to try to bump feed this out. I typically go all high speed and then just keep hitting it till it comes. Got plenty of string. Let's do it. Here's the aftermath of that on my feet. So you can see it does get you quite dirty, but overall it worked great. And that was probably one of the heaviest applications you could do. That was a lot of thick crimson clover, and we just tore right through it. Battery is still at 3 bars, so we haven't even put a dent in the battery yet, and that was a good bit of work. Overall, if you're on the Dewalt battery system, this is a tool that personally I would highly recommend. It's got its flaws, but most tools do. On the whole, it's extremely handy to be able just to pick it up, hit the trigger, and it does its job, unlike most gas trimmers I've ever used.